Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Legacy Division, and it is going to be an interesting event here as we head our way straight into a short qualifying event, and of course the sprint ahead of us is going to be a magnificent one. It is myself, Jota, alongside Steve for the first time in the Legacy Division. Nice to have you alongside me for this one. Jeddah is going to be an interesting event for these drivers. First time that we're going to be racing competitively excuse me, for a lot of these teams out there at the moment in a sort of competitive team environment. What are we to expect?
Well, first of all, hello everyone. Thank you for having me today, Jota. But yeah, so Saudi Arabia, obviously, probably one of the hardest tracks on the game due to how tight the circuit really is and how fast it is. So we are really looking out for mainly a good straight line speed setup and not really focusing too much on the corners, but you still need the downforce to make it through them. We are looking, hopefully, not to see many mistakes and hopefully a bit of a cleaner race than last week, which I was a part of, and we shall not speak on the topic, but yeah, hopefully a bit of a cleaner race, and hopefully the drivers on this sort of unfamiliar territory on this game, not really having many league races that I've seen around this track. So yeah, it's definitely a track where it will catch a lot of drivers out if you make one crucial mistake.
It's going to be one of those things we're going to have to keep an eye out on. A lot of the drivers out there as well are going to have to keep an eye on what they can do performance-wise related to grid penalties, of course. BRT are going to be taking a 5-place grid penalty, whatever happens at the end of the sprint race. So that is something that is going to be probably attributed into their strategy of just watching Hungarian hero VSR Akos come across the line to start his lap for the Ferrari VSR team. And there's loads of corners around here, but the circuit itself is laid out in such a way that you're going flat out through quite a lot of them here. So lower downforce setups expected, but, and I know that you said it's something you're wanting to sort of shift away from, try and not talk about, but it is something that has to be talked about, of course, in the effort of these drivers are going to have that at the back of their minds. What happened last week in Singapore was something that a lot of these drivers are going to have to sort of understand may be deemed as unacceptable, and they're going to have to change their approach. So as a result, I'm going to be seeing a different bit of gameplay in this event.
Yeah, of course, it definitely will be in the back of a lot of the drivers' minds about what happened last week, and yeah, it is going to have to be a whole different like playing level now, a lot more cleaner racing from these drivers. Maybe not take as many risks as they have done in the previous weeks around this circuit. But yeah, most of these corners aren't even overtaking opportunities. It's going to be with these DRS zones on the track, 3 consecutive around here. But yeah, it's going to be hard for them to try to adapt to a different style from last week. But if they did enough practice to get with their teammates and stuff like that, they definitely can sort of change their driving style and their standards to hopefully bring it up to a whole new level.
Absolutely, so we'll see then Akos will come across the line and he's a 10th down on the PSR driver, fresh up in pole as it stands at the moment. Of course, remember, this is the short qualifying event that will decide the grid for this sprint race around here. So all going to be decided really in these first 18 minutes. Now, a bunch of drivers already out of this qualifying session. PSR Boots out of qualifying for PSR. LCR Leopard on a lap at the moment, just above him, just below him rather. Esteban Tamasi is also not taking part in this qualifying session. Here's the man of the moment, Otis Lawrence. He is racing obviously in the Mercedes for the FRA team. Now, FRA looking fairly sharp so far this season with Otis at the helm, and he continues on with his really good form around Legacy so far this season. Correct me if I'm wrong, every single race so far this season has been won by him, and so far that form looks like it's going to continue. His 3/10 up on fresh.
Yeah, Otis seems to be sort of the man on Xbox through everything that he has done so far in league racing, and of course keeping that up in this Legacy division. Just a man that doesn't seem that he can be topped in this part of league racing so far. Maybe we can see him switch over to PC after this season. I think that is his plan, but he's definitely a man with a lot of confidence, a lot more confidence probably on the power than maybe some of the other drivers, more experienced drivers on the field. And yeah, maybe he's just unhuman-like, if you want to say it like that, about how quick he is around these circuits. And Yeah, he is definitely someone who is looking to prove themselves to the bigger teams, and maybe once he gets to the stage of esports and all like that, maybe trying to beat the likes of Jarno Opmir and people like them.
Obviously, there'll be something later on down in the line at the moment, but the pace that Lawrence is showing is at the moment equal to that of his teammates in FRA, as the secondary Hungarian hero in FRA, Piste, will come across the line with a 28.0 himself, the difference only being in the hundredths between those two drivers, but still nearly 3/10 faster than the nearest rival at VSR with Finn, who had a really, really good race actually in TPS last night. So certainly, I say, a very good race in the effort of that he actually tried to make a very good effort of staying on a set of wet tyres through an intermediate stint to go through to dries, and it was a valiant effort, just a little bit too long, but excellent driving skill to keep that car pointing in the right direction. So it'll be taking that pace forward, knowing that, you know, I've got the ability to be able to get up the rankings, and obviously with the upcoming sprint as well, it's definitely an opportunity to climb up the rankings. So let's have a look down the rest of the field at the moment. Below the bottom five, we've got the likes of FGE Latifi as well. Nicholas Latifi announcing his departure from the Williams team at the end of the season as well. So that is going to be a bitterly disappointing stuff for those fans over in Canada and across the world. But just below Latifi at the moment is a very quick driver racing for Shazoo in LCR Leopard. 28.5, a little bit down on the grid where you would expect him to be, but to be fair, only 2/10, and he's up in the second row. So really a testament to how close all the drivers out are on the grid so far tonight.
Yeah, it really does show the skill of all these drivers and how close they are to each other. And to be fair, Leopard's qualifying hasn't always really been his strong suit. We've not seen it in the main tier 1 of WOR or really that much in the Legacy division so far, but he's definitely a man that's more known for his race pace, and he can definitely come through the field a lot better than the likes of the people that mainly focus on their quality pace. And around a track like this, it will be more difficult for him to do such of an overtaking mission, but he definitely does have the pace within him to get into the higher ends of the field, even with a poor qualifying.
Keeping on board at the moment with some of the drivers all on their outlaps at the moment, as we've got Latifi. I don't believe he's on a lap at the moment in the Aston. He's well down on the timings at the moment, so he'll be just about to start, I think, another rush of laps here will the Aston Martin. So he'll come across the line. He's currently with a 28.4. He'll be looking to try and push up where he can. People that are tuning in, thank you very much to every single one of you tuning in. We've only been live for about 10 minutes in this session, and already 53 of you popping in. Thank you very much for all of your support, and having a quick chat about situations related to Lawrence saying sad about Latifi. Well, why not? His Go-Tifi is the man of the moment out in the Formula One sphere. Why can't we be sad about the imminent departure of the Canadian hero? And then Gary Birch in the chat saying De Vries time to put Williams P6 in the championship would be a valiant effort indeed from Nick De Vries to try and push Williams up the standings. And to be arguably as well in the real life Formula One championship, we can certainly say Williams has definitely got a bit more pace in that car if Albon's driving has got anything to go by in that judgment. So, plenty of drivers, though, outside of the real-life Formula One film in this esports realm. We currently have 8.5 minutes, or a little bit over 8.5 minutes left in this session. People now getting out for their potentially second and some maybe on their last runs at the moment. An opportunity to talk about drivers that still haven't set a lap at the moment. Both ERL drivers haven't set a lap as it stands at the moment, and it is one of those conversations, really, that we have to talk about ERL. It's a little bit of a downfall so far for their season so far, and the progressive downfall from performance-wise from ERL continues to dwindle. However, they're racing with possibly their quickest lineup in Aiden and Connor tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing especially what Connor's got in the realms at the moment. He's just heading around into the second sector as we speak, as we're currently on board with Aiden. You know, some of the, obviously, teams evolve, teams change, teams will, you know, adapt, Steve. In that scenario, ERL are on a little bit of a downfall, but we can easily see the well-structured organisation of a team like ERL to climb right back up the rankings again. Yeah,
they certainly can. I mean, of course, they are using their strongest lineup. Yes, they have sort of dipped a bit in their sort of quality in the past few races of how the actual races have been, but you can never count them out, even if they keep the same driver lineup week in, week out. You can never count out the likes of Aiden and Connor. They are two very quick drivers, and they can put out a performance when they need to and if they have to. And as well as Aiden's gone up to P8, so he's at the minute in a top 10 start for the sprint, and that can definitely be sort of what they need to get their form back on track for the next few weeks in this championship.
It's one thing you got to worry about, though, being P8 in a sprint race around Saudi Arabia with that close knit turn 1, turn 2. You really don't fancy being in the middle of a 20-man race around here. Whilst we were talking, by the way, VSR Akos went fastest and was probably very happy to go faster than Otis Lawrence, and then within about a fraction of a femtosecond, Otis Lawrence comes across the line and sets a 27.5 dead at nearly 4/10 of a lap faster than Akos. So Otis now really starting to flex his muscles out on the circuit at the moment, as we still are waiting on 3 drivers to settle out. One of those in Connor. Piccolo has just started his lap. He's racing for Shazoo, and the Aston Martin just heading around turn 1, but looking like he's actually in a lower ERS mode at the moment. He is on a lower ERS mode at the moment, so I don't even think he's on a lap, is Piccolo at the moment. So starting to get a little bit nervous now, I think, are ERL and Shazoo, as is Bourbon as well at the moment. He's currently on a lap and looking fairly okay at the moment in the Aston.
Yeah, sure, Shazoo. Maybe a bit worrying about Piccolo's sort of like lack of being able to set a lap in, but of course this only does qualifying for the sprint. It's the sprint that really matters in these qualifying stages. So maybe if he keeps at the back, he can miss some of the drama and improve some of those positions. But I reckon he would love to be a bit further up and challenging for the pole position at the very top. But Bourbon goes into P15 with a 29.0. He was talking in the general chat in the Discord before the race, saying he's not very confident around here today, and maybe that's just showing the lack of confidence he has.
Good spot, Steve. I missed that one completely, actually. And that one, and talking of confidence, we've lost another one in Euro Titans Esports Recluse. Having a bit of a spin, certainly going into the second sector. He wasn't looking confident going through the almost set of S's, and he's unfortunately spun in the infamous corner where we saw Mick Schumacher in the real-life F1. End up having quite a horrible accident. Unfortunately, he did end up hitting the gearbox on the wall, did Recluse, so there's a possibility there may be some damage to that rear wing as well, if that's a possibility. And again, that rear snapping out, and that certainly suggests to me his rear wing might be done for at the moment. Now, no aesthetic appearances on that rear wing as regards to damage, but it certainly can be felt if indeed he has lost it. We'll see how he does then going into these corners here. And again, that rear is just not comfortable at all, and I think that rear wing is completely done for, and that might be Recluse's qualifying over and done with, 1.7 seconds down on the fastest lap.
If he has damaged the rear wing, that is definitely not something he particularly wants, especially around a track like this. He's done quite well to keep it out of the walls so far as he goes into the final corner. And no stepping out there. Oh, there is a bit of stepping out, sorry, should I say. But yeah, hopefully it's very close with the amount of time left on the board if he can come in and come straight back out again. But with rear wing damage, it's something you certainly don't want, especially if you are on a flying lap. And yeah, I think it will automatically fix and he won't have to wait, but it'll be tight for him getting back out onto the circuit.
We'll have to see anyway. I'm fairly certain that the rear wing damage will actually stay throughout qualifying. If it does get fixed automatically, that is rather jammy to say the least, because really that rear wing should not be repaired in the time that you've got left. You'd have to argue that the rear wing probably will be damaged now for the rest of this qualifying session, which is definitely going to send that Euro Titans Esports driver down the rankings for the sprint race, although he will have a fixed rear wing, of course, for the sprint. Here comes then the Alpha Tauri. It is ERL Connor. Been waiting to see get a lap coming in from him, and straight into the top 10 with ERL Connor, and he goes in front of his teammate to lock out a fairly solid 5th and 6th row between the pair of them here, but they are slap bang in the middle of some heavy action for the sprint, which could be not exactly the best place to be. 14th and 15th of the Velox team as well. They're keeping themselves squeaky clean, just trying to get themselves points where they can, and of course that position for Jack and Quantum is actually not too bad. They can be a bit hesitant going into turn 1, and I've got plenty of action out on the field, plenty of space on the field rather, to see where all the action is. And drivers now just about getting ready for their final runs around here in Jeddah. Early indications suggesting that FRA flexing muscles with Otis Lawrence once again 4/10 up as he just leaves the pits.
Yeah, Otis is very far out in front. I've just seen Jack spin on his lap going through the banked hairpin, as now everyone, of course, coming out for their final runs of the session. Some of them leaving it very, very late if they want to come out or not, as the actual game does take a while to make you come out. I think that's the same in real life as well, but as some drivers are on a lap, there's who's the furthest round? I think it might be Fresh on a lap furthest round, or maybe Andrea. No, he's backed out, so it will be Fresh in the Williams for PSR. Now opening up the DRS, going through, which I think this corner does count on the corner count, but now going through the sort of long left-hander of a straight into the final braking zone, now through to the final corner where Max Verstappen was on that brilliant lap and crashed at the end of the 2021 calendar around this track, and now across the line up to 6th place for Fresh with a 28.156.
Yeah, PSR will be happy at the moment with a 3rd row spot at the moment, but there's going to be plenty of drivers out there and that are going to be wanting to improve on their lap times, and you've got to consider as well, I've just had a quick look in the chat myself while you were talking to see is there any details as to what the track is feeling like at the moment. Plenty of people saying out in the field the track feels like there's zero grip out there at the moment, which could be sort of a giveaway here for those drivers that want to improve their laps. The track conditions are only going to get better, and the Evolution might become a serious contender in this race. So we'll keep an eye on Leopard. He's going to come across the line and he's going to start his lap now. Will the Shizou runner racing in the Red Bull as he now heads into turn 1. He's been a very, very consistent driver, has Leopard. He's been fantastic to watch across multiple different leagues as well, and noted dissimilar to, of course, to WOR, especially with the Legacy division. Has been fantastic there as well, as we just follow him going through sector 1 at the moment, and he's got to keep it nice and tight across those walls, but try and not graze them, because if he does that, you can consider the lap over and done with. Very tidy indeed as he'll come across the sector 1 split lap time, and he's actually unfortunately a 10th and a half down at the moment, as we've lost a driver in Carsey in the McLaren. He is happy with his lap, and he will be in the pit lane to retire on that one. So very interesting stuff happening around the field at the moment. We'll keep an eye out and see how everyone else is doing. So Akos will not be improving on his lap, as will not Otis Lawrence, who puts it in the wall. And he tried to push that car to the absolute limits, and to be fair, he hasn't really got anything to prove at the moment, so he was just trying to see what he could find. He's found the limits, and he is out of qualifying, though as it stands he'll be starting at the front in this session, as will FRA Pisty, and FRA will be taking a front row lockout for the sprint as it stands, as everyone else looks like they're coming into the pits and not going to be improving. Leopard's second sector was also down as well, so I expect he's not going to be going any further, and he'll be starting on the 5th row in 9th place. Quantum also in as well, so the last driver out is going to be Bourbon, and he's also not set a lap, so it's all about Piccolo. What's he going to do? He's the only person yet to set a lap time, and it's only 13th for the Shizou driver, considering his teammate up in 9th. It's quite a big gap between the two of them, but an opportunity for Shizou to maybe consider playing around with strategies here for the sprint as well as the race ahead of us. Otis and FRA are at the front with Pisty in second as well.
Yeah, Otis showing that pushing the car to the limit doesn't always produce the fastest of lap times. It can result in the mistakes there, as as you said, he had nothing really to sort of defend from. He was well out in front, but Pisty getting actually quite close, about 2 tenths behind, which doesn't seem close if you think about it, but knowing how fast Otis Lawrence is, it is definitely very close to the mark. And as we have finished the qualifying session, but yeah, some of the drivers might be a bit disappointed with how that qualifying session went, but there were some good performances by some teams and some drivers out there on the grid.
FRA then locks out the front row for the sprint race. Akos in third with Magician in fourth place. Good performance from him from McLaren with Finn in fifth. The Williams of PSR Fresh for PSR in sixth, and FGE will be happy as well with seventh place for Latifi. ETE Andrea in eighth place with Leopard in ninth. Carty rounding out the top 10 with Quantum in 11th, Connor in 12th, Piccolo in 13th, Aiden in 14th, and Mean Jack, Bourbon, Recluse, Boots, and Istvan Tamase rounding out the rest of those drivers as we do then head into the sprint here in Saudi Arabia. Now the first indications are suggesting Otis was pushing to the maximum he can to see where the limits were of the car. So it's all, you know, despite the crash, it's not going to be a worrying scenario for FRA. I suspect Otis just wanted to find the limits so then he knows exactly where to put the car as and when for the race. And even so, you know, it's all a learning curve, and a lot of these drivers who had the same issue, of course, will take that into account. But as it stands, FRA really flexing their muscles, but credit where credit's due to VSR again. They're hugging each other, although albeit split by a McLaren in fourth place with Magician.
Yeah, Magician actually has had a really good qualifying today. It was a very good lap to put him into P4, splitting those VSR drivers, as you said. But yeah, Otis was definitely just maybe seeing how the car felt under immense pushing and pressure, maybe for this sprint race, as of course it is a very short race. I think it's only about 9 laps for this sprint. So yeah, so obviously maybe think about pushing on those medium tyres and just seeing how fast the car can go, because he could just use them up as much as he wants. And yeah, Pisty doing well as well, passing Akos, and of course Akos also had a very good lap. He's very up there, maybe in shout for maybe a P2, passing his fellow Hungarian of Pisty. But yeah, Otis, of course, is just definitely looking for the sprint pole and maybe even the race win as well. He just seems to be an unstoppable force in the race sessions so far in most of the leagues I've seen him in.
So, it's also worth mentioning as well, Magician being in fourth place is a really good position for BRT, because, of course, BRT are going to be taking a 5-place grid penalty at the end of this sprint, so they are really, really going to be in need of their best driver essentially working at their best, and Magician absolutely flying high as it stands at the moment with that fourth place. Now, people in the chat asking the question of what is going to happen going into the sprint. First indications to me are going to suggest, Gary Birch in the chat saying, Akos to go full send into turn 1, which I wouldn't blame him, but VSR have been on the back of a little bit of downfall in form recently across the league racing spectrum, if you will. So I think it's more going to be about consistency we're going to be expecting from VSR tonight. I'd be looking actually more closer to the likes of PSR with Fresh, and maybe even as well FGE, because with Latifi in 7th place at the moment, he may want to also put a little bit of pressure on there as well. Also worth talking about strategy as well. Medium tyres across the board. Did see Piccolo very briefly be on a set soft, so he is looking at the potential for a soft tyre, but we are expecting the medium tyre to be the choice tyre for this sprint. But early indications suggesting FRA are absolutely stonewalling essentially this entire division, especially with Otis. He's been absolutely fantastic to watch, but different format, sprint now into the equation. Could that mix things up is the main one.
It certainly could, especially because we are going to have a lobby restart. It could make Otis and Pisty and mainly some of the other drivers just sort of lose the pace they had, because they have to sort of just reintroduce themselves to the car and how the track feels. Because it's a whole different setup in a new lobby, to sometimes how it feels. So it definitely could shake things up. We're about to get underway. I don't think there's a formation lap, is there? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Nope.
But I'll let you get underway with the drivers.
We're going to be heading on our way now to all of the drivers on the grid, getting themselves ready for what is going to be a very, very intense race in Saudi Arabia. We're in a sprint in Jeddah, and these drivers are on their way now to what is going to be a very tightly packed turn 1. FRA Pisti immediately shutting the door on Akos as they go in through into turn 1. Multiple drivers in a little bit of a battle going through turn 1 as we've got a half spinner for FG Latifi in the Aston Martin as he drops down the rankings. As we continue having a look here, he's down 4. Bourbon up 5 though for FG, and that's exactly what they needed in order to counteract from that incident with Latifi. But good so far from Otis, who manages to hold on and already beginning to pull a gap on Pisti in second. Akos in third, Magician holding on to his position in fourth as we've got FG Latifi again in a spin, and he's down 12 positions to 19th.
Oh, that's an absolutely horrendous start. Not what FDE wanted for Latifi, having contact through turn 2, and then I don't know what happened. I just saw his car spin round on the exit of turn 4, and it's just not what FGE really needed. But they do have Bourbon up in P11. Hopefully he can stick to the back of Carty for their sake in this sprint race, but he does have Colin all over the back of him and maybe going in for a move into the left-right chicane. Just backs out a bit low and lets Bourbon keep his position. It is a bit of an unorthodox opportunity to overtake, but he is now trying to go around the outside of the straight and gets the move done on the Aston Martin before the braking zone. And that is Connor moving himself up into P11 ahead of Bourbon.
On board then with Recluse as he goes into a spin, and he's out of the sprint race before it even really got going, and that is on a very precarious place. No doubt the safety car is coming out straight away. He was on the throttle that too quickly. I don't know whether the rear wing, the damage he had earlier on in qualifying is carried over. I don't believe it is. It looks like he just put the power down too quickly, and the safety car is now out, and in that scenario, of course, everyone has already gone past the safety car, so everyone now will slow to a crawl, and this is now the question of whether the drivers elect to go for a pit stop here and stick on a set of softs, and you wouldn't blame them if they want to go for a set of softs, because the safety car surely is going to be out until around about lap 4 or 5. That's going to make for a very quick and very pacey car with the low fuel and the softest compound of tyre. I am certainly looking forward to seeing what we've got strategy-wise coming up here, and suddenly people like FG Latifi might consider themselves back in this race. Towards the midfield in the moment, by the way, a couple of positions get lost at the moment for Jack in 18th place. Real shame there for Velox. Position lost for Fresh in 7th. 3 though gained for Shazoo's LCR Leopard. Great performance so far from Mr. Consistency himself, for the German in the Austrian car. Very, very well. It's been a long time since we've heard that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, Leopard having a very, very good start here in up into P6, and in the chat, Skipser says that Recluse had no audio, so he had no clue what was going on with the car. So that probably was what was to blame for his spin. And if some drivers might box into the softs, Jack and Piccolo have already gone onto those tyres, but the two FRA boys stay out, and it does seem most drivers are going to stay out for these mediums. It wouldn't be too much of a surprise if we do see Latifi come in for the softs, because I don't think he would actually lose a place, as its fan does come into the pit lane, probably for those soft compounder tyres. And hopefully these 3 drivers on the softs will give us a little bit of a charge and give us some entertainment on their charge up through the field.
I mean, it doesn't. I don't blame the people electing to move over to a soft tyre. It's going to be a fresh front wing as well for Isfan Tomasi as well. Is now relegated down to the back of the drivers that are still in this race, of course. A bit of a shame to hear Recluse had the sound issues, of course. Let's be perfectly frank. Codemasters have provided us with a game where the sound does tend to bug out quite extensively, which, if you're in any other game, might not necessarily be too much of a problem. You can just wait for the patch. But when you're talking in competitive racing environments, you really could do with hearing the engine whilst you're racing around the paddock and around the track, rather. As, yeah, very disappointing stuff to hear indeed. So people are electing to move over to softs, but only 3, Jack, Piccolo and Isfan Tomasi, all electing to go to the softs. Everyone else electing to just hold on with track position. I'd have expected the likes of Latifi, Boots, and maybe even Amine to come in for a set of softs, or maybe get one of the ERL drivers to come in for a set of softs to do the inverse strategy as well. But in the end, all of the teams electing, apart from those towards the back 3, are electing to just hold on with the strategy and just stick with the same set of tyres to the end of this race, expecting the safety car will probably be in at the end of this lap. based on what I'm seeing here. If not, definitely the end of next lap, as that red Mercedes safety car, and there it is, safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. So it will be now a 5-lap dash to the end, and I love a good 5-lap race. I don't know about you, so this is going to be fun, Steve.
Yeah, it certainly will be. As it's a massive surprise that some of the drivers at the back of the field don't go on the softs to gain as many places as possible. But we'll wait to see when Otis does go, and he's gone now. He's left Pisty behind, or maybe Pisty is just going to try defend from Akos and let Otis just gain the gap he needs as Aiden gets past Bourbon before the safe. We even cross the line, so he has to give that place back, and now they're going to go side by side into turn 1, as now Aiden down the inside of Bourbon. Now maybe going for a switchback, he is. Bourbon goes wide, but it's a tag from behind, which is from Amine, as now Aiden has to stay in P13.
Yeah, very disappointing stuff. Unfortunately, we did miss that little bit of action in that midfield there, as unfortunately I went a little bit blind and my screen turned off, so I couldn't see exactly where we were pointing. But Bourbon again losing the rear end ever so slightly, so not feeling too confident. Maybe the medium tyres are a little bit cold. They are actually about 77 degrees is the warmest tyre at the moment, so he's actually trying to get his tyres warmed up at the moment, is the Aston Martin, and that's not exactly what he's going to be looking for. Is Bourbon, as it stands, is getting a bit of a challenge here from Aiden for ERL as he now heads through into the mid-sector 2, as he will keep on a challenge, but of course he's going to have Amine just coming in behind him as well, in that little battle towards sort of 5th and 6th place at the moment. So Finn slowly but surely pulling a little bit of a gap, but unfortunately in the last sector, Leopard, I say unfortunately in the efforts of VSR, Leopard has really started to find a bit of a push here, and he is going to go for it potentially going into that final corner. He's going to keep it nice and tidy down the inside line, and he can't really squeeze him out too wide, otherwise it's going to be a horrible accident. So they now have to go side by side heading into turn 1, as the Ferrari of Finn is going to try and hold on, and he has got the racing line, but Leopard's got the sprint down the straight, and he will take P5, and that is very early on the brakes from the Shazoo driver, as Finn, I think, just had to lift off the power there. I'm not sure whether that was a little bit of a lag or whatever, but very precarious that Leopard decided to go into that corner a lot slower than I think Finn anticipated.
Yeah, it does seem that Leopard maybe broke a bit early to just avoid the back of Magician, but further back Bourbon was in P12 at the start of the second to last straight, and has now dropped all the way down to 15. He was just dropping positions. So obviously his car is not the best in the straight line speed department, as now we see Connor following through Condom through the left-hand hairpin. I want to say that's about turn 10 on the track, or turn 11. As now, yeah, all these drivers now seem to be in a bit of what we would see next lap, a DRS train. And I don't think, unless people use a lot of their ERS, many moves will be made.
Just keeping an eye on this little battle at the moment for P6, as Finn just slowly but surely managed to find a bit of time versus Fresh, who really started closing down a little bit. But Fresh in this sector has not been particularly great, and there's a bit of a deja vu as to what happened with Finn on the last lap. Fresh is now experiencing that, and actually is under a little bit of pressure from now the sole ETE driver, Eurotitans Esports, Andre, as we now have the DRS enabled. So this is where the DRS trains, as you rightfully point out, Steve, will now begin to form, and it's all about who's going to have that straight line speed. Leopard certainly looking like he's got the pace down the straight, but it's all about whether he can hold off from the attack from Magician, as we've lost a driver, and it is Bourbon. We've lost him in going into turn 1, and the virtual safety car has come out as a result. Now it's a full safety car has come out once again, so now all of the drivers will pack around behind the safety car on the 7th lap. I expect no one is going to be pitting here. They're going to want to try and consolidate track position, and this safety car surely will only be out for 1 lap. So 2 safety cars in this sprint race has shown the efforts of these drivers pushing that a little bit too hard in a track where if you make that mistake it will cost you big time. It's lap 6 of 9.
Yeah, it really does show how hard these drivers are pushing, but it was on the mini-map, it did look like a bit of an unusual place for a car to retire, maybe a little bit of a tag from behind on Bourbon's car, but yeah, the safety car will have to be in next lap, because the game gives you a maximum of 2 laps of racing, so Yeah, so lap 7 is when the safety car will pull in, so these drivers at the back will need to sort of hurry up to catch up to the leaders of Otis and Pisty up in front. But yeah, it's definitely a showing how hard these drivers are pushing for their positions and how hard they really are defending. But it's gonna really show us some good racing these final 2 laps that we'll probably have.
So this is now going to be the question of what are the drivers going to do. So no surprise, nobody's coming into the pit stop. I wouldn't be surprised if Latifi, Piccolo, Tomasi all decide to come in for the soft. They've got nothing to lose. Yeah, Piccolo and Tomasi straight in. So that doesn't surprise me. So they're going to go onto a fresh set of softs in the hope they can make positions up on those that are going to be on now fairly used medium tyres. But as you rightfully say, the safety car should be in at the end of this lap. I am under the impression as well there is a rule that suggests the safety car will only allow up to a maximum of 2 racing laps before it will be forced to come in. As Jay Lully in the chat saying it's going to be a 2-lap sprint, I think. Oh no, which could be a big oh no, to be fair, because I think the first thing that comes to my head, Singapore is surely going to be ringing in the heads of a lot of these drivers tonight.
Yeah, it really is, especially with the amount of safety cars we've had in a really short time. I mean, 2 in 9 in about 6 laps is a bit of unheard of and not really the greatest to see, especially in a sprint race where it's not really as important as the main race. But we'll... Oh, that was a bit of lag on my end. I thought Carsey just drove completely into the wall. Under the safety car, but it will be in at the end of this lap, so Itzvan and Piccolo really need to get a hustle on and maybe try to catch up to the end of this safety car. No, Itzvan will, Piccolo should as well, but it's going to be interesting to see how they come through the field. If they get up to at least P14 might be their goal, to at least get higher up the order and see what they can do from there in the race.
It's all going to be about that question. Of course, remember the top 8 will score points as well in this sprint race. Thank you to all 129 of you tuning in to this 2-lap sprint to the end of this race. Safety car coming in after 1 lap behind the safety car. The drivers are all now getting their tyres prepared after the unfortunate incident that we saw Bourbon crash out heading into turn 1. Here comes Otis. He'll come around the line here, and he doesn't want to try and catch Pisty 2 napping here because he's going to be under a lot of pressure, especially from Akos and BRT's Magician, as well as he'll go down the straight. And he is leaving it a little bit later this time. He didn't go, went down the straight actually a lot more, but there he goes. The Mercedes now sets himself off as we go green again here in Jeddah. And we've got plenty of drivers going side by side here as Leopard is looking to try and make a jump, maybe on Akos, but because of that incident with Magician, who's going around the outside, and he's going to take P3 off Akos because he's going to be off camber, and there goes the half spin, and now he's under pressure from his teammate Finn here, so VSR have got to seriously consider consolidating 4th and 5th here as it stands. Magician, what a move from 3rd place for BRT. He's going to need that as VLX Quantum has spun going through 4, and that is bitterly disappointing stuff for Velox as Esteban Tomasi in the Haas is flying high at the moment on these fresh soft tyres. He's putting in overtakes left, right and centre, and that's exactly what he was looking for. He's now up to 12 as PSR Fresh is also down the orders. Paradox Sim Racing are struggling around here tonight, 13th and 18th respectively.
Yeah, they've had a really shocking restart with fresh Quantum, and also Carsey's lost his whole front wing in the McLaren down in 16th, but Magician pouncing on Akos, sort of being a bit delayed on the restart and moving up into P3. We also saw Finn overtaking Leopard behind, but now here comes Leopard to try and regain that position going into the final corner, maybe as Carsey lets Quantum go, but now on board with Leopard down the inside into turn 27. There's a bit of contact made between the two, but I think Leopard's just going to win out on this one due to his superior straight line speed.
May do, and of course no DRS at all. There'll be no DRS throughout this entire final bit of the race, so this really truly is a sprint of the best here, and who's got the better strategy, who's got the better tyres, and who certainly has got the better setup. And Finn is certainly still putting that challenge on Leopard, but he's just able to get the power down so much quicker, and with the straight line speed and somehow more downforce going through the corners, Leopard certainly is able to get off the line better, but through the corners he's struggling, and you can see coming through here, even with the close proximity and the dirty obviously reduced, Finn is still able to keep on very close proximity here. DRS, of course, again, not available, so this is all about pace now, and he's going to have to rely upon the toe as they now head through that big left-hander. The drivers are going to want to keep it nice and steady and hope that they can consolidate positions. BRT are going to be smiling ear to ear here with Magician, up into third place, and actually putting a bit of a valiant effort on to put Pisty under some pressure, maybe as a potential front row start on the cards for Magician if he keeps on with the pressure. And here comes Akos, and he's starting to now build the gap versus Leopard. Leopard down 1.1 seconds, and actually Finn is going to be applying some pressure here as they now head through that third sector. He'll want to keep it nice and tidy. Will the Red Bull and Shazoo driver, of course, Shazoo Piccolo up to 8th place as well. Really good effort from him. Pitting under the safety car to go onto a set of soft tyres has worked an absolute treat. But it's all about towards the front here as we have to celebrate what is going to be another cracking pole position for FRA and another cracking pole position for the man of the moment. Otis Lawrence comes across the line to take that pole position, and FRA will make it a front row lockout 1-2 in the sprint. Magician for BRT will be so happy to get on the second row alongside Akos. Leopard for Shazoo in 5th with VSR Finn. Euro Titans Esports will be very happy with 7th place with Andrea with their co-compatriot down at the back of the grid. That is, of course, before we apply grid penalties. Piccolo is in 8th, Emine in 9th, Connor rounding out the top 10 for ERL.
Yeah, that was an absolutely superb drive from Otis. In 2 laps, he's gained 1.6 seconds already, which is sort of unheard of in the league racing sort of whole view of league racing. So, yeah, really good final 2 laps by him, and a lot of carnage happened there, especially on the second restart, and Itzvan gets the driver of the day, which could be deserved, knowing that he come all the way up into P12 after that safety car pit stop. But Piccolo, who was dead last at the start of that second restart, gets 1 point in P8. A really, really good restart for him, and those 2 laps were definitely handy with all the crashes that were going on ahead. And yeah, so an FRA 1-2. Maybe Pisty will defend in the race from everyone behind, but yeah, Otis seeming that he is the dominant one out in front already.
He's on pole with FRA with Magician in 3rd, Akos in 4th with Leopard in 5th, Finn in 6th, Andre in 7th, and Piccolo, as you rightfully point out, getting that point in really good circumstances. Certainly driver of the day performance alongside his Fantomasi. You got Amin, Connor, Latifi, then Aiden, Boots, Jack, Quantum Fresh, Carsey, Bourbon, and then Recluse at the back, as now, of course, all of the drivers are going to be getting themselves ready for the restart that's going to happen, because of course we are now going to head forward into the pause before we get going, because we've now got to start applying the unfortunate circumstances of penalties on the case, because unfortunately, obviously, BRT have got to take a 5-place grid penalty for the various collisions that happened earlier on in that scenario, which is earlier on, I believe it was in Singapore. So that has got to now be applied in their strategy, and it's all that question of what are they going to do later down the line. And I'm wondering on your case, Steve, you know, taking that into account, they've got one driver well up the field. I don't believe it's him that's going to be serving the 5-place grid penalty. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in that scenario, you know, BRT are in a good position. They've got to really consider their position on track and consolidate what is going to be a very good performance, surely.
Yeah, Magician, yeah, is not taking a penalty. It will be Carsey, who would only lose 2 positions in the end. So it's not all too bad for BRT and what is going to go on. But yeah, it's something that Magician will really have to use his strategy wisely, because he hasn't got a teammate to help him like FRA and VSR do. He's all by himself up at the top there. So he really needs to try use his strategy as best as possible and really sort of think about the whole defending, when he should defend, when he should attack. Will the attack be his best way of defending? And if he wants a good point paying position like a P3, he will definitely need to keep consistent for all the laps and not make one single mistake.
Let's have a very quick conversation with people in the chat as well. Thank you very much to every single one of you tuning in about the question of there's no point in a restart. Is it Carsey was last? No, he wasn't. It was Recluse at last. Obviously, if he crashed out on lap 1, so he's down in 20th, but he will start 19th because Carsey will obviously have his 5-place penalty added on. So that's why we're just very quickly waiting on the new lobby being set up with him relegated towards the back. So we will leave it off on that particular conversation, and we'll have a very brief conversation with people that are also in the chat. And the question is, where is FRA Elite, which is another big meme that seems to be developing within Jeddah. So in that scenario, we will again identify FRA Elite as Otis Lawrence. He is flying high at the moment, is Otis. He's been taking win back to back to back to back and so on. What, who, and if is it possible to stop this guy? He's been flying high, and I don't think anyone can stop him at the moment.
Well, I mean, the only way he was stopped in Tier 1 last week was a quali ban. And that was because it was around Silverstone, so DRS trains were pretty big, and there was a safety car which did halt his progress. And yeah, I think that's the only way you can really beat him, is either he makes a mistake, which is very unlikely, or he gets a quali ban for blocking someone on their lap, like he did a few weeks ago. And yeah, he's just near enough impossible to stop. He is, I would say, at the minute, on like the Jarno Opmeer levels of pace. He's one of the quickest drivers I've seen on Xbox so in my time of league racing and commentary. And I don't think he'll be able to be stopped this race unless he makes a costly error, which is very rare for Otis to make. And he's always unhuman-like with the amount of consistency he does have.
It is unlikely that we're going to see an issue from Otis, but he did make that one mistake in qualifying, of course, probably trying to push the car to its maximum limit so he knows where he can push. So probably more so an experiment as opposed to an error, but he did still crash, and regardless of, you know, whether it was experimental or not, I don't know, in my experience anyway, it might be different for you, it might be different for you out there, all 106 of you waiting for the lobby to start. You know, it does knock your confidence a little bit when you crash out, because you've then got to step back and you can't do anything with your car, you can't do anything at all until the next session, and you have that internal rust a little bit, I think, don't you? Because you lose track of what the conditions are like on circuit, what is the actual track layout, where can I turn my car, and your muscle memory does tend to elapse a little bit. So I don't know, it might be just me because I'm a noob, but that's the experience I see, you know, in that scenario. I don't know about yourself.
Well, yeah, obviously, restarting the lobby will not help in the slightest. They will need to remember to put the setups on, because if you don't, that is race over immediately, as the default setups are pretty poor, like usual on the F1 games. But yeah, Otis making that mistake, well, I mean, was it a mistake, or was it sort of on purpose? He knew he was safe. But that mistake could cost him a bit in the race, because it is a corner where you can really gain time on the car ahead. So if he does have that sort of a bit more nervousness going through there, think about if the car will step out or he'll hit the inside wall, it can have a huge effect on his pace in that middle sector. But knowing Otis, he crashed, he probably doesn't even think about it anymore, and just gets his head down, drives as fast as he possibly can, and push until the race is over.
So, I mean, that's obviously going to be something that we're going to be very keen to keep an eye out on. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we have coming up ahead of us. And, of course, what we've got coming up ahead of us throughout the rest of this WORLD calendar. Because after Saudi Arabia, we are going to be heading on our way to Monza in a couple of weeks' time. We've got a week break coming up, which is going to allow all of the drivers and all the teams to recharge before they head to Monza. Another circuit of speed, obviously the temple of speed. That week break, I think, is going to be really imperative for these drivers, aren't they? Because they're going to really want to try and push as hard as they can in this race, knowing that they're going to have the ability to relax, try and get themselves back into the swing of things, and obviously get a bit of training done in that week break.
Yeah, it really will. It could help some of the teams that have been on a bit of poor form, like FGE have had a bit of a drop off. Sorry, team. Don't fire me, but yeah, like FGE, ERL, it can even help VLX to sort of just have that week out, not really have to push as much in the practice, and make sure they're all ready within the space of a week. They can take that week to practice when and where, whenever they want, and really use that to then hopefully be up the order in the next few weeks. But it would still be a hard task, even if they do that practice in those sort of 2 weeks from now, to still even beat Otis, because I reckon he only needs a few days of practice and then he's already clear of everyone else. And it's all they're really going to be looking for is how can we beat Otis in this break week. They're going to see what he does and where they can improve themselves as a team and all their drivers personally, and really try and adapt to how Otis drives and maybe see if they can focus on building the momentum Otis has.
Absolutely. Before we get going, because the setup is now complete, and I believe we are going to be getting racing very shortly, we have had a little bit of an update that ETE, unfortunately, are now down to one driver. Recluse will not be racing. His audio issues are continuing and are unfixable, unfortunately. So that will be his race over. And FTE have still got Andrea, who is in a really good racing position in 7th. So he is definitely, ETE are definitely not out of the realm of getting some good points tonight, regardless of what happens. Let's take a very quick look then at the standings before we get going here in this session. And the standings as they stand in WRLD. Again, FRA and PSR are the two teams at the moment within the Xbox sphere that are fighting it out really aggressively. Now, TPS is falling in the way of PSR at the moment, but WRLD falling well in the favour of FRA. Obviously, it's not all about Otis. Performance of the likes of Pisty and so on are all performing really well as well, and obviously managing to secure that 1-2 is going to help them. Velox up in 3rd at the moment with 43. Now, WR are still counted in the standings on 36. However, they are obviously not continuing in this tournament, RWR Esports. Shazoo just behind them on 3 points behind, with VSR on 26. ERL are on 20, Novus on 12, BRT in a really good position at the moment with Magician and some well-earned points in the sprint. They are on 10. And FGE are at the bottom at the moment on 6. Worth making note as well, of course, that these are the points prior to the sprint race, so the sprint race points have not been applied as of yet. We will be getting away very shortly for this WR event. Stay tuned, we'll be back in just a second for your continued coverage of the WRLD event in Jeddah. Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen, across the world. We are back for this continued coverage of WRLD. This is the Legacy Division live from Jeddah. It is myself, Jota, alongside FGE Steve F1. Thank you very much for being alongside me for this one in Jeddah. Of course, we've just had to come out of the break with what is going to be, I think, a very, very intense race ahead of us. Of course, the 5-place grid penalty has now been applied for the BRT driver, Carsi, so he will now start at the back in 19th place. The unfortunate scenario for ETE in breaking news is that Recluse will not be starting for the team, Steve, but nonetheless, Andrea in 7th place. ETE is still in the realm for some good points, are the Euro Titans team?
Yeah, they are. They're definitely in a shout for a good finish here. Andrea, just like Magician, needs to focus on his strategy and how his race plays out himself. And it is unfortunate for Recluse, as the audio issues cannot be helped. It's not his fault. It's all the game, and Codemasters not really helping that, because they've not actually made an attempt to fix them so far. But hopefully Andrea can put in a good performance for ETE, but Carty only got a 1-place grid drop in the end, but still he has dropped down behind Bourbon, and most of these drivers are looking to make a bit of an impression and improve on where they are and score some very, very good points today.
Very good points falling on the case at the moment of FRA, who lead the championship at the moment. Not all because of Otis, despite his regular winning streak in this league at the moment. The performance of the team in general has been absolutely superb in WRLD. And as it stands at the moment, they're on inverse. No, never mind, they're not anymore. They were both electing to start on the hard tyre. We are expecting hard medium probably to be the strategy, medium hard to be the inverse. Though at the moment, Piccolo was on the soft, and now he's switched over to hard. I've been mugged off twice in the period of about 15 seconds. It's wonderful. So we are expecting the hard to medium and medium to hard to be the way to go in this scenario, and I think a lot of drivers are choosing their strategy as we speak. So good evening, every single one of you, 100 of you sticking along for the wait that we've just had, of course, leading into this race. Thank you for everyone for your support. Steve, we are going to suggest surely the immediate favourite for victory is going to be Otis. However, he did crash in qualifying. Obviously, it looked more like an experimental crash, i.e., can I get this car to push in this particular corner? Oh, no, and I'm in the wall. But as I said in the break, I do believe that that can knock people's confidence. So will that affect Otis, or is he going to continue on with the strength that we expect from him at this point?
I mean, it definitely can, as I say, have an effect on how he attacks that corner. But knowing Otis and the way he drives, I don't think he'll actually care about what happened in qualifying. It's in the past. Now, he don't have to push as hard in the race because he needs to sort of conserve his tyres a bit more than he did have to in the qualifying session, because he will have to make them last till the pit window and then to the end of the race. So he don't really have to go as heavy through that chicane, but it could still be playing with his mind. But off those final 2 laps in the sprint race, it didn't really show that he was slowing down at all.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what the performance is of FRA, but the main talk at the moment, outside of the unfortunate negative situations that have occurred, that will be, of course, with Recluse, is the fantastic performance then of BRT with Magician, managing to apply a magical performance, if you will, to get third place. He's on the second row alongside Akos of VSR. Now, VSR again were hugging each other quite nicely throughout the sprint, but then Leopard has now split them. Andrea split them on the qualifying for leading to the sprint. So VSR managing to find their rhythm again and just hold on with each other at the moment. They're going to want to try and keep that form going because they did dip a little bit, but Leopard in 5th place. Leopard is my driver to watch this season because he is not just getting quicker with every race I'm seeing, he is getting very quick with every race that I witness now, and I'm really thinking, towards the end of this game cycle, he is going to be a driver we're going to be watching.
Yeah, Leopard has always been quite good in qualifying, getting into the top 10s in the middle of a top 6, a top 5 in qualifying. But then his race pace is completely different. He's a whole different person once he goes into the race. He is a lot quicker. He can actually maybe give Otis a run for his money in today's race, due to how quick he is in the race format. But he's definitely a guy coming near the end of the game that will be up at the very top of the Xbox platform in the near future, if it be at the end of the game, even if it be at mid-game. He's definitely going to be there and stay there all the way through the game's duration.
Certainly looking forward to seeing what we've got ahead of us then. So 15 seconds before we get going then, very quickly. Early indications suggesting Otis is going to be the favourite for the winner, but I'm curious as to what your beliefs are for the podium.
I'm going to go for an Otis win, a Leopard second, and then I'm going to go for Pisty third.
There's your thoughts. Put your thoughts in the chat. Let us know what you think as we now head on into this race. The drivers are lining up on the grid. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go. The drivers here they are. It's actually a really good start from Pisty, actually. He might be putting a little bit of pressure on the likes of Otis, but in the end, he can't get anywhere near him heading into turn 1. But really good start from Akos, who's trying to put the McLaren under pressure, but Magician holding on in this 25-lap race to P3 as Leopard is now putting some early pressure pressure on Finn, but again, the limits of the track unfortunately mean he can't go side by side with him for too long, as we've lost one of the Hassers, and I believe that's Amin, who has now spun out towards the back, and Bourbon and Jack also fighting a moment with Carsey, as we've got a horrible incident towards the back, and that looks to be a horrible incident involving Esteban Tomasi, and he is in the wall and spinning out, and the safety car out straight away for the third safety car of this event. Very, very awful incident. See that Haas just flying down the straight, off the track and into a wall, and Amin is on his own in 18th.
Oh, that is a horrible, horrible start for Itzvan. Not what he really wants, not what Amine and Itzvan wanted at all, but now Amine down in 18th. I think he spun on the exit of on turn 4, but yeah, it's not really what those two wanted, as I saw the crash back, and Itzvan, I think, got a bit pinched on the inside and had nowhere to go and had to clobber the inside wall, and it took off his tyre. But Pisty did get a good launch, couldn't attack his teammate, but we have Finn overtaking Leopard, so the VSR boys back together as in 4th and 5th, and Leopard down into that 6th place, but he does have Piccolo behind it for that support to defend from the likes of Connor and Latifi.
I mean, I wanted to very briefly have a conversation about Shazoo, actually, after the sprint race. It's been a really monumental performance. Leopard obviously showing his pace as usual, but Piccolo obviously pitting under the safety car with only 2 laps to go in the sprint, managing to climb all the way up to P8 and now hugging 6th and 7th respectively are Team Shazoo, 4th and 5th being held at the moment by VSR, and then BRT out of nowhere in 3rd place at the moment. Really good start from the McLaren, actually, managing to hold off the attack from Akos, hugging it around the outside, takes position right out of the hands of him, and he will stay in 3rd place. And you rightfully point out, as a result of that, VSR are now 4th and 5th, and they're now hugging each other. This is where we see the best of VSR. They work together as a team so well when they are together on the circuit in a race, and now they're obviously behind the safety car, so that gives the drivers an opportunity to now understand what strategy they're going to be picking. As we take a look at the other BRT driver, Carsey, now he did pit under the safety car, and he is now pitted for a set of hard tyres, which is now going to be a 23 lap stint to the end. Now, of course, some of that will be under the safety car, but that is a bold call if he is attempting now to do the one stop, and he'll be all the way at the back in 18th place, of course, with the sole Novus driver of Amin after that crash that brought the safety car out from Tomasi.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a pretty long stint that Carsey's going to do. I don't know if the tyres can actually make it that far, but this actually does help Magician lengthen out those medium tyres that tiny bit more, and he can maybe sort of play near the strategy of the hard runners, but he will be on the hards at the end of the race compared to everyone on the mediums, but he can still pull off a brilliant performance at the end of the race. He could still be quite high in the points, which would be really good for BRT's case in the championship and improving some of those places up the order. But yeah, so Magician sort of having fun with this safety car and enjoying it as much as possible, maybe not weaving as much as the guys on hards, just to preserve that tyre life.
Yeah, maybe, but that's something that Bourbon, I think, was doing under the first safety car in the sprint, and his tyres were 10 degrees cooler than everyone else's, and I think that directly led to a lack of confidence in the car, and then inevitably a crash heading into turn 1, which brought the second safety car out in the sprint. So it's going to be a bold call here, and I think Carsey's heard your call, by the way. He's come again into the pits to get off of the hard tyre, and I'm wondering if he's now going to switch over to a medium tyre again, with the idea that he wants to try and take these mediums to the end under another safety car later down the line. Otherwise, it will be matching everyone else's strategy and potentially going on to another set of maybe a soft tyre towards the end. We'll have to see. Either way, we'll see what tyre he's come out on, actually. It is the same set of medium tyres that he started on, actually. So Carsey electing in the end, I think, just to do that pit stop, so then he has the option to take those mediums to the end, which we were debating if the hards are possible to get to the end. The mediums certainly are going to be one hell of a stretch to get to the end, as we've got Kuya Balda in the chat, NRX as well. Nice to have you on board with us tonight for this event. Magician is a wonder kid. Wow, he certainly is an absolute wonder kid. He is presenting his magic on stage, and he's pulled an ace out of his sleeve to keep himself in P3. That was awful. I'm so sorry, Steve, you just had to hear that. But he has managed to get himself into P3. Well happy with that performance. Akos and Finn 4th and 5th respectively, but they'll be wanting to mount some serious pressure on the BRT driver, and it's all going to be about BRT actually. They're not usually in this position. Is Magician going to fight it out with Akos and Finn at the risk of the lack of experience potentially leading to an incident, or is he going to say, I know you guys are faster, I'm not going to pose that much of a challenge?
Well, I mean, it's going to be like any other race probably for Magician. Just see what he can do, try score as many points as possible, even though he is quite high up the order, so he probably will try to defend from Akos and Finn, because there's only Aiden who's on the medium strategy as well, but as the safety car is coming in. But yeah, Magician will need to really try defend from Akos and Finn to try get as many points as possible when it comes to the end of the race.
We'll see what happens then as they go down the straight. And now here comes Lawrence, who's decided to leave very early. And this is the more reminiscent of the first safety car under the sprint. We go green again here in Jeddah. And to be fair, he's still warming his tyres up on the straight here. Magician under some pressure again from Akos, who's going to have to go around the outside. He will have the inside of the next corner, but the hard tyres are not going to be falling in the favour of the Ferrari. Here comes the McLaren then as he uses overtake to try and stay in front. He will have the inside line. Surely Akos is going to have to whole yield it. And he certainly does. And he goes off the track. Does Magician as well, so he may have to argue here that VSR might pitch in and say, actually, he did re-overtake Akos, but he overtook by going off of the track to complete the move. So maybe a call to the stewards later on down the line, which would be bitterly disappointing stuff indeed if that is the case for BRT. Akos then stays in 4th with Finn in 5th. Now Leopard didn't push that hard either. He stays in 6th and hugs with his co-compatriot Piccolo, who is under some serious pressure here from ERL Connor. I did say he'd be the driver for ERL to watch here, and he's in 8th at the moment, and putting some pressure on the Red Bull in front as we've got a 5-second penalty being awarded to PSR Fresh for cutting a corner and gaining an advantage.
That is a very unusual penalty to occur, but I think he might have cut the corner and passed Jack. But Leopard now trying to put Finn under pressure, just like he did in the sprint race. So we can maybe see another move going up into the final corner, down the penultimate straight, as now he goes to the outside for the final corner. It depends all where he brakes. And now can't pull it off, but Magician was actually trying to go for Pisty up in front, so he might be trying to attack what seems to be an unstoppable FRA.
Oh crikey, this is really close here between Finn and Leopard at the moment as this battle still continues. Leopard is putting his car in to a potential gap that just isn't there. It does get a little bit of a tank slapper that's very well caught, but in the end Leopard is trying to put the pressure on the VSR boys, but again the VSR team are a brick wall when they hold the respective positions one behind the other, and Leopard stays in 6th place. Magician, as you rightfully point out, was putting a bit of pressure on Pisty here, and suddenly the pace of the BRT driver matching that of FRA quite nicely is actually pulling a gap at the moment to Akos, about 3/10 as it stands, not too big, but could be a problem later down the line. May suggest FRA have not got this one completely covered here, because BRT are looking very strong with Magician as he just finds the gap again and tries to close down the gap to Pisty, but he's taking these corners so much more aggressively, is the BRT driver, and he's not making any mistakes, and he is now beginning to put Pisty under some pressure. Of course, no safety car, because of the safety car, there'll be no DRS until the end of this lap. So this is all going to be about what Magician can do on the next lap, and he's certainly sizing up a move, as he's certainly got a warning there, maybe for track extension on that occurrence. But look at Akos already losing a bucket of time here, maybe in out of 1 second here by the time we start the next lap, and that would be detrimental to VSR's performance, especially as both drivers are now out of 1 second on each other as well.
Yeah, that would really work in Leopard's favour, but the problem with what Magician's doing, he has got nowhere near the amount of ERS that Otis and Pisty have. He's got about 20% less, and there's contact between the two, but Pisty managing to keep that car in a straight line, luckily for him. But it's showing Magician is putting him under so much pressure and trying to make a move as quickly as possible to maybe actually turn his attention onto Otis up ahead, which might happen, might not happen, but he has used a lot more overtake than the two in front, so that is something he'll need to look out for as the ERS management.
it may be a contributing factor here. I must say, Magician, certainly, again, a bit similar to what happened with Leopard on the previous lap. He was looking for a gap that wasn't going to be there, and that's just in my humble commentary opinion, and not of the stewards, of course. They'll make that decision, but in the end, it didn't really help him out, because in doing so, he's had to slow down, and now he's putting himself under some pressure versus Akos, who's now well within the DRS territory of the McLaren. DRS now open for the McLaren as they now head through the next DRS zone, and it's all going to be about what Magician can do here, because he has been using a lot more overtake. You're absolutely right, he's down to 34% on my screen at the moment as they now head down the straight, and it's definitely going to be into the mid-20s by the time that we get to the end straight here. Now this is all about what Otis is going to do in front. I'm wondering if he's hovering from sort of pounding on with his laps too quickly here in order to help Pisty defend and FRA take a 1-2. But here it comes, the McLaren, and he's still using overtake, cuts it off now, and he isn't going to put too much pressure here. It's all going to be about what Pisty's going to do, and I've got no doubt Pisty's going to try and hold on, just tuck in behind Lawrence and let Lawrence sort of carry him around the track here, as we do have overtakes potentially happening, as Leopard is still pushing Finn under some lot of pressure here, and the gap is 1.4 to Finn as well, and look at that red light blinking already. I think Finn has been pushing too hard with his ERS management, and he certainly has. He's down to about 14% at the moment, and now VSR and that little brick wall that they are most famous for in racing is now beginning to crack once again, and Finn can't stay within the touching distance of Akos, and Akos can't slow down because he wants to put Magician under pressure. They are under a lot of pressure at the moment, are the strategists at the Ferrari and VSR.
Yeah, they really are. The ERS management is so much more harder on this game than it was last year, so there is still definitely some learning for these drivers to do, as it seems Finn, he is pushing a bit too hard, but look at Leopard, still on half his battery, so he hasn't been pushing as much as that's the Tiffy round on the exit of the right-left chicane, and that is really not what FGE needed. He was up in about P9 when that spin did happen, and that is not what the FGE camp wanted. But here comes Leopard now, going to go around the outside of the straight. I know it's sort of not a straight, but it's as hard to comment on. But he gets the move done, but Finn will have the DRS going back down the main straight.
No power.
Will he be able to pull away? But Leopard, with that superior DRS, just pulling away now. ERS, sorry. Just pulling away, and Piccolo is actually maybe trying to move on the Ferrari up in front.
Oh, he's been spun by ERL! ERL Connor has spun him round, and to be fair to Piccolo, he was also out on ERS as well, but was able to get alongside Finn. But ERL are hugging positions themselves, and Connor was certainly, I don't think really looking for it, but because of all the battling that was happening in front, he may have got caught out, and he spun the Shazoo Piccolo, and Shazoo are going to be absolutely livid because they were flying high with Leopard and Piccolo, who is now relegated to 11th place, and I'm sure he'll find the pace to get himself back in there again. I doubt he's got any damage, has the Frenchman, but now Leopard is on his own, and he does have a battle with Finn still on the cards, but that lack of ERS management from the man wearing the fish helmet is not going to help him, especially around this part of the corner where the majority of these corners are just flat out. In that little battle happening towards the front, by the way, it has died out a little bit, 7/10 of a second now separating Magician from Pisty, as it now begins an ERS management strategy. Now above 55% is the McLaren, so obviously not trying to push too hard on this occasion. Obviously recognised he was going to put Pisty under some pressure, made a slight mistake, half spun, but the race continues on for that battle at the moment for P3, and a BRT Bunga Racing team are going to be absolutely, well, they're going to be chewing their nails off at the moment in the hope that Magician doesn't make another mistake like that one.
Yeah, they certainly will be. But talking about BRT, Carsey has had a really untalked about safety car restart, already up to P11 due to everything that has gone on. He passed Piccolo on the exit of the banked hairpin, and it was actually a really good move round the outside into the right-left chicane, and he manages to go up into P11, and mainly now trying to focus on quantum ahead. And he's had a really good safety car, restart from the safety car. We're on lap 9 now, and he has really been quietly slicing his way up the order.
His next victim in his eyes then will be Quantum, racing for Velox in the Alfa Romeo, up in 10th place and up 6 positions himself, actually. So Velox, with him having a really good race. Jack, unfortunately, not so much, right at the back at the moment of the drivers who are still in this race. We've had 2 retirees from this race. One did not start. We lost Recluse at the beginning of this race due to sound issues, which sure if you are familiar with the Formula One franchise on Xbox One, that will be a reoccurring problem, and Istvan Tamasi crashing in a horrible accident on the second lap, which brought the safety car out and has keenly brought some of these drivers really into the mix here. Now, ERL, despite the mistake from Connor, are holding on at the moment in 7th and 8th, respectively. They'll be trying to chase down Finn at the moment, and Finn is now under some pressure. The ERS management strategy from Finn has been poor, and ERL Aiden is now the lead driver for ERL. The only issue is Leopard is still giving a nice tow and DRS to Finn, but the ERS is available in the RBPT engine in the back of that Alpha Tauri, and they're going to go side by side into straight. Leopard might be under a little bit of pressure here. He's been known to break a little bit earlier into one, not on this occasion. Finn trying to hold on here, but down the inside line goes Aiden, and they're still side by side heading through 2 into 3 and then into 4. Aiden should pull out from this particular move, but is he going to hold on is the question as they go round here, and off of the track goes Finn to try and defend from that one, and it's all a question of whether ERL are now going to say VSR defended by going off of the track, as we've lost the other ETE driver. He has crashed Andre through the 4th, 5th and 6th corner, and the virtual safety car has been brought out, and that is very close from Aiden and Finn potentially getting into an accident as everyone goes side by side to try and avoid a collision, and the virtual safety car comes out, which is going to allow drivers to recharge their batteries, and I'm expecting we're going to start seeing some very early attacks when that safety car period ends.
Yeah, this is not really what Leopard wants if you think about it, and everyone behind, because a VSC won't catch him up to the back of Akos and Magician. It will just keep them where they are, and another problem with this game is that the deltas are different for everyone for some reason. Well, not everyone, but certain drivers. Like, that's maybe why Finn and Aiden nearly came to blows, because of the difference in delta.
Whoa, crikey.
So,
sorry, apologies to interrupt there. Finn got caught out from a very slow-moving Leopard. Now, apparently DRS has been re-enabled, but I still have full course yellows across the screen here, so I'm not... There we go. Now we go green again here in Jeddah, and Finn is now going to try and capture a move potentially on Leopard. DRS and ERS available for the Ferrari, because he's obviously had to recharge his batteries, as we do have some drivers now pitting early on. Aiden has decided to come into the pits. We've got 3 wide going into turn 1 as Connor tries to defend from a battle for Quantum, who goes down that inside line to try and defend, as they're still going side by side. ERL Connor potentially cutting the corner to try and defend from Quantum, but Quantum stays in front as PSR Boots is also trying to get the battle. And look at Carsey as well for BRT, has been flying high as that McLaren, even with the grid penalty, up to 10th place and 9 positions gained so far, and he is looking rapid, as you rightfully point out, Steve, earlier on. Piccolo, Amine, and also Fresh for PSR still battling hard at the moment towards the front, but as it stands here, Akos has had a really poor virtual safety car restart here, as he now tries to pull on and try and put some pressure between him and Magician, as the gap between him and Leopard now opens above 10 seconds.
yeah, the 3 wide there going into turn 1 did pay out a bit for Quantum. He did send it down the inside of Connor, but he did try to keep it as clean as possible. Boots backed out. Really respectful racing there from the Williams man, just backing out and not really fighting for that position much longer. But Magician is still out on those mediums. They don't look too bad as well. And he could still be on the same strategy as the cars ahead, and maybe the softs might be able to last, depending on when they all come into the pit lane. Oh, is that, sorry, Carsey has gone straight into the side of Boots. So now he's run up the order, has come to a halt, because he goes straight down the inside and goes, outbrakes himself, I think, and goes into the side of the Williams of Boots in front. So
he'll be racing with FGE now as Boots comes into the pit lane. Maybe some damage or maybe just a strategy call here as Amine is battling with PSR Fresh going through turn 2, but no move available on that case here. Very good call about Magician, by the way. We've got people in the chat as well. Scyther, very well respected American driver racing for PSR, who says that Magician has literally been gifted here. Yeah, maybe if Leopard did lose a bucket of time under the VSC, apparently 8 seconds were gifted between Leopard and Akos. If that is the case, that will be disappointing, but Magician has been flexing some serious pace throughout this entire race weekend, and this is not a gift if he does get a podium in the end, does the BRT driver, because he has been absolutely rapid, and these are points that are definitely BRT are going to need. They're 9th in the standings at the moment, forgive me, 10th I think actually, and they absolutely really could do with a podium position, because this would be a fantastic result in the end for the Bunga Racing team. Velox as well, they've had a really good tournament tournament so far, third at the moment in the standings, and they are currently racing at the moment with VSR, and at the moment VSR Finn is just having to hold on, but ERL Connor, again, the person who made a mistake earlier on in this race, in that little battle with Piccolo, who's 2 seconds behind him and actually under a battle with PSR Fresh, who's now up to 9th place as he makes the overtake, and Amine also looking to try and get in the mix as well, but can't make the move on that particular occasion. 11.2 seconds the gap between Leopard and Akos now, as that gap really starts to form as Finn comes into the pits for his first pit stop, and here comes Connor, who wants to try and make a move on Quantum for 6th place. They go side by side heading into turn 2, but Quantum is going to lock up on the outside, and they're going to bang maybe a little bit of carbon fibre on the ground, maybe some side pod damage. It was a bit of a hit, but Connor stays in P7 as FG. Latifi gets a 3-second time penalty for track extension warnings, now up to 3 seconds for him.
Yeah, good battling there between Connor and Quantum, but Finn, an early box here for the Ferrari, earlier than anyone else, maybe trying the undercut, but he has come out behind PSR Boots, who was actually behind Finn, so Boots doing that undercut has actually worked out for him, so maybe going onto these medium tyres early can gain you those few positions, but they will fall off near the end of the race. But what I have noticed is that a lot of these drivers are on really low ERS. That most of them are below 10%. As look, Pisty, up in 2nd place, has got nothing. He's got 0% ERS, and he only gains about 5% into the final braking zone. So he definitely is one to defend from Magician, but now Akos and Pisty come in, and Magician stays out. So he's gone longer than some of the hard runners.
He's doing medium soft then. It's absolutely going to be the call. It's a plan C move potentially for the BRT team, and if that's the case, he's managed to make these medium tyres last a treat. And to be fair, a safety car on a VSC is certainly going to help his case if he wants to try and get a medium soft strategy in the play here. Can you really blame BRT for having a go at this one? The issue is going to be about strategy and where he's going to end up as a result of everyone coming in onto a set of hard tyres. It's all about, are these medium tyres at 13 laps, as he gets a 3-second time penalty as we're talking about him. Sorry, Magician. We're in the scenario where he is going to be... Is he going to be on a position, where his medium tyres are going to be old and as worn as the new hard tyres in comparison to pace? Are the hard tyres going to be faster is the question. I want to argue potentially no, not yet. These hard tyres take a long time to switch on around here, so it's all going to be about when he decides to come in for a set of soft tyres, which I expect is probably going to be around about lap 18 if the common knowledge of how the strategies work and how the tyres work is a case. As we've got all the people around here now, other people are just in the chat at the moment asking the question, as Crispy says, Magician makes me fall in love with BRT, man. I mean, he's performing really well at the moment. Scyther, wonder how FRA will decide who pits first. Well, there's your answer. Piste comes in first. It's all about what Lawrence is going to do. We are expecting Lawrence surely should be coming in, or is he going to hold out maybe for a hard soft strategy? We'll have to see. No, he looks like he's diving into the left. No, he stays out further. So is he now electing to move over to the alternate strategies? He gets the fastest lap of this race so far on the old set of hard tyres, 1 minute 30.387.
It's going to be hard for when... I reckon Otis will have the pace to actually do the hard to soft, but for Magician, I don't blame him for having to go for the medium soft, but if he can't make it to those softs and goes onto the hards, he would have lost a lot of time, especially now that Pisty's gone from in front of him. He's out with the DRS, so as Cypher says, I mean, he's got no DRS. Pisty box was the one giving him it, and now Pisty can do the undercut on those fresher mediums, which will be a lot quicker, and can now focus on sort of just trying to see how fast as he can go, while Magician sort of has to be a bit more tentative on the exits, on the entry, make sure his car don't spin out, he don't get too much tyre wear if he is going onto the softs at the end, and maybe Pisty can pull out that gap to about 5 or 6 seconds by the time Magician comes into the pit lane. So and Magician would really have to work hard.
He's lost about 4.5 tenths on this lap alone, Magician, versus Lawrence at the moment on the hard tie. Now, Lawrence obviously is in another league at the moment, so obviously you've got to take that one with a pinch of salt. So really, you want to look at the comparison versus the likes of Leopard and Pisty if you want to see how his mediums are performing. And to put it bluntly, he's not really matching. He is losing a couple of tenths, so I expect he's going to be coming in, and he is not. So he is absolutely going to dedicate himself to that medium at soft strategy. As I'm just taking a look at his tyre wear at the moment, because the keen eye of myself has got one very, very firm eye on the wear at the moment, and to put it bluntly, his worst affected tyre, which is to be expected around here, is the rear right tyre, is currently 71% worn.
That is so close to puncture range, just about 4% more, and then that tyre will explode. Well, it won't explode straight away, but it's within the window to explode, and really, that could be really detrimental to his race if his rear tyre explodes, because the car will not have any stability through the corners and could throw a whole chunk of points out the window. So he's got to come in the pit lane as soon as possible, or he keeps running the risk of that rear right tyre failing on him, and he could be out this race. So
73% worn, 75% worn on the rear tyre now. So 75% is what we, in the league racing community, we say 75% is usually where we start to see punctures become a serious contender. 80 is where you start to see maybe the cliff beginning to fall. And definitely at 83, 84, his pace will fall off the cliff. If he does not pit this lap, he is at serious risk of falling off a cliff. Though on this last lap alone, he's managed to gain a 10th on Leopard. So he's definitely got the best out of these tyres. Is he going to make a pit stop alongside Otis? And no surprises, he's coming in and getting off of the tyres that are now 76% worn as he comes into the pits. Otis will then leave on a set of soft tyres. LCR Leopard is on 15 lap old hards that he will now be crossing on the line to make the 16th lap. He still needs to make a pit stop, does Leopard at the moment. You've got to make that one clear, and that is going to be a bit of a scary scenario, I have to say. It is the battle versus Magician and Akos you need to look for, because Pisty was in front, and under that period, as to be expected, Akos has done the jump, but he is on a considerably older set of medium tyres when we get to the end of this race. Magician is on a fresh set of softs. I expect, with the pace of the BRT driver, that 2.5 second deficit, nearly 3 second deficit, surely is going to crumble, but it's all about what happens with that 3 second penalty that's got on his head as well, because that could be a serious contender in this race, and be bitterly disappointed if he misses out on a podium as a result.
Yeah, I mean, going onto the softs this early is a bit of a risky strategy for Magician. He definitely will be able to gain the time on Akos and Pisty up in front, but going onto the softs and having to do a good 8-9 laps on them, they would be absolutely shattered at the end of the race. They'll have no life left. They'll be about 50%, if not 60%, and all these other drivers will be on about 30-40% on their tyres. So yes, he might have that quick burst in the short run, but in the long run, it might not actually benefit him, and he could drop the positions to the likes of Pisty and Akos, because when the softs hit the cliff, is a lot more earlier than the hards or the mediums, because of how grippy that compound is, and once it loses that, it will be near enough game over for Magician.
Yeah, that's absolutely a fair point. The soft tyres will fall off a cliff a lot quicker if he does indeed reach that step, which is going to be a lot closer than you think, actually. If the hard medium tyres, were falling off a cliff around about the 14th or 15th lap, I expect the softs will only last about 8. When Magician finishes this race, if he does finish the race on these soft tyres, they will be 9 laps old. We've got a yellow flagged wave, and we've got a yellow flag wave for a pit. I think it's it's not a pit stop. It's heading around into turn 2. It looks like we've had a bit of a half spin, and it is involving potentially a Mine. I'm not entirely sure, but
it was actually Boots.
All right, so
I think he got tagged from Finn behind into turn 1 and spun round for a half spin and dropped him down a few places.
That's not been a good race from PSR, actually. The second place team in the championship at the moment are not having the best run of form at the moment, with Boots and Fresh around here tonight in Jeddah. Pisty, on the other hand, though, is now starting to close down the gap on Leopard. Now, remember, Leopard still needs to make a pit stop here, so as it stands, he will be falling well down the field, will the Shazoo driver. I'm not entirely sure as to why Leopard has stayed out a little bit further. I think he's trying to match Magician and trying to do a X tyre versus to soft at the end. But plenty of people in the chat are just saying the question, hard to soft or medium to soft is a stupid strategy, is the opinion of those watching, all 120 people watching. Plenty of criticism on the strategists at BRT and Shazoo as it stands, as Leopard still doesn't pit and gets overtaken by FRA Pisty. 5 lap old mediums, though, those will be quite considerably aged towards the end.
Yeah, they certainly will, but staying out this long doesn't seem right. I mean, Latifi's doing it as well, but he didn't really have much to fight for like Leopards, as he was already quite far down the order, so he might as well go for something different. But with Leopards, as you saw Otis, he went onto the mediums. He didn't go for, even though he probably had the pace to do the hard softs, he still went onto the mediums. Whereas Leopards, it's a risky strategy because he can still fall down quite a few places with this strategy. And there's a DRS train forming behind Quantum. But quickly, I need to check the gaps at all them. He is near enough within that gap of the DRS train. And he could be stuck there and not be able to make the moves and really use those soft tyres. And Magician really is sort of gaining about 4 tenths a lap on Akos ahead. So the softs don't seem to be as quick as we really expected them to be.
Yeah, but maybe he's also on a strategy to try and not push the softs too hard so that he can at least get the best out of the soft tyres over a longer period of time, as opposed into the short period of time as he heads now into the final corner, the infamous Verstappen corner, and very excellently placed does the McLaren as he now heads down the straight. And he is, oh, what's happening here? I'm not sure. We actually have a bit of an incident happening, and the safety car has come out, and I believe that's an incident involving HSR Emine. And the Haas driver will be disappointed with that scenario, and that has now brought a fresh set of soft tyres on the case of Magician. Leopard has made a bold call to stay out on the hard tyres, waiting for that safety car to come, and it's worked a treat. The only issue is he is going to sacrifice a few track position, as Piste has got a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car, and that has completely turned the race on its head for FRA, as Piste has been caught out by, well, I have to be perfectly candid, the delta time that is at times a little bit glitchy.
Wow. I don't know if that was because of the delta. Maybe he had to, like, because sometimes the safety car could come out and it gives you like a 14-second delta you need to try slow down to. But that's thrown everything up in the air, as Leopards doing this strategy has now sort of overcut Magician, and everyone ahead of him is on medium tyres. I think Otis might just have a gap to pit.
Otis will definitely have the gap to pit, no doubt about it. Obviously, the safety car came out as they were passing the pit lane, so the safety car wasn't out fast enough for them to be caught up and then effectively lose a pit stop. So I expect Otis, no doubt, is going to come in and change onto a set of soft tyres. The only issue, of course, how long is this safety car going to be out for? Because if this safety car comes out and stays out until lap 23, Piste will not have the opportunity to serve that drive-through penalty. And if that becomes the problem, I don't know what the WOR team are going to say here, because in that scenario, as they are obviously double stacking as a result, Akos now coming in as well. Quantum is, I thought he was going to stay out, but he's not. He is coming in. So Leopard will be the first driver past the start finishing line. Will he be able to jump anyone is the question. If we are, they've got three, remember they have 3 laps, haven't they, to serve their drive-through penalty. If we get 3 laps under the safety car, that takes us to lap 23. We will then go racing with 2 laps to go. I don't think at that point Piste will have the option to serve his drive-through penalty, so it's all about whether WOR will have to hand the essentially a 20-second penalty to the FRA driver. So a few questions up in the air about that one, and I'm trying to revise the rule book quickly, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that may not have been incorporated because it is a very once-in-a-lifetime scenario.
Well, our question has been answered because Luke has put in the chat that the 20 seconds will get added instead of a drive-through. It is given by the game. So the game will give him 20 seconds if 3 laps are not used, or he will be disqualified.
Okay.
If there was 3 laps, he'll be disqualified, but if there's less, 20 seconds will be added. So
the question from HSR Rage is actually asking the question if it's not an instant DSQ anymore. It is still a disqualification, but you have to serve your drive-through penalty within 3 racing laps. But if we're under the safety car until lap 23, we're going to get to the end of the race before that 3 laps. So technically he can still finish, but apparently, thank you very much to Luke popping in the chat as well under the WR account, just to fully confirm, 20 seconds do get added on the game, which in my experience of racing, it has happened once to me in the past where I didn't serve it. I didn't even get a single penalty thrown at me. Obviously, it was added on at the end of that race, but it was a common problem, an uncommon problem within the league racing community. So we are going to be under the safety car at least for another lap because we're still waiting on Bourbon and Jack to join the back of the queue. That will be the 22nd lap, and then when the safety car comes in, if it does come in at the end of this lap, it will be the 23rd lap, and that will bring us 3 laps of racing. And I have a sneaking suspicion at that point Pisty might get away with not serving the drive-through, but he will get 20 seconds at the end of it that he, I think, may want to pitch maybe to the stewards if he's not guilty of it to get it removed. So very much keep an eye out on the Twitter, keep an eye out on the social medias for WOR Teams League, because this is going to be very much a situation that people are going to want to keep an eye out on. 130 of you tuning in, by the way, thank you very much. We're behind the safety car with 4 laps to go, or this will be in the 4th lap, 3 laps to go at the end of this one. It's going to be mighty close, I think, this one. Steve Otis is going to be under some pressure.
He definitely will be. Akos will, with 100% battery, but so does Otis, but Akos will definitely be looking to get him early to make sure he does not get away, because we saw him on the late restart in the sprint race, and he gained 1.6 in 2 laps. So Akos will definitely be looking for to pounce on Otis, to try and either force Otis into a mistake or overtake him, but then he does have Leopard behind that he needs to think about.
Just having a quick look in the chat at the moment as well. Sorry to interrupt there. We've got Brett Norman just saying, I'm just catching up on Sky Glass at the moment, Rage, so I'm still in the sprint race. So it gives me opportunity to say that if you are a Sky Q or Sky Glass customer, you can of course not watch any of the highlights for this particular race because we're not affiliated with them. So not a sponsor. We'll keep an eye on that one. Gary Birch in the chat saying, I predict 5 murders is what he thinks is going to happen at this one, but it's going to be a 3-lap sprint. We've had so many sprints events in this race, and I believe the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap as we get all the drivers now going to want to try and keep those tyres warm, nice and fresh. Safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. I'm certainly looking forward to this event. Keep a very firm eye on what is going to be happening ahead of us. The safety car is now approaching the final corner, that long left-hander, the infamous Verstappen corner, of course. Otis, for now the 4th time, will now be leading the pack from the front under the safety car, and it's all going to be about how is he going to make the strategy. Is he going to go early or is he going to go later? He's gone a couple of times early, so I expect this one may be later as they go through the 22nd lap to start the 23rd. He is going a little bit later, is Lawrence, as he's going to wait here, and he goes, and has he caught anyone napping is going to be the question. Covers off the inside immediately, does Akos. We go green again for the final sprint to the finish here in Jeddah, as Akos is going to try and defend from Leopard, who might go for the late braking maneuver going into 1. It's not going to work on that particular occasion. He stays back. Piste stays in 4th place as Carsey and Magician are battling for a BRT. This is the last thing that they wanted, as we've lost a driver towards the back here. O'Connor has got into a spin and he crashes out, as does PSR Fresh down towards the back as Carsey gets into a little bit of a tank slapper. He loses a position to Quantum, and around the outside goes Latifi. What a move from the FTE driver, promotes himself up to 7th place. Magician, though, his strategy falls flat on its backside and he stays in 5th, and he loses time. Left, right, centre as Connor gets a 3-second time penalty on his own in unforced position here, as Carsey loses more positions as he gets into a battle with VSR Finn up in 8th place, as Fresh crashes out of this race here. The safety car will not be coming out surely as a result of that one. We will continue racing towards the front. Akos already losing 1.5 seconds as we get someone losing towards the back, and Carsey has spun out towards the back, and that will be BRT's event for him over and done with.
Aiden got into the back of Carsey, sent Carsey round, and then on the exit Aiden spun himself, so a bit of karma for Aiden there. But we Jack down the inside, Bourbon into the final chicane, and that was a really nice move by Jack in the Alfa Romeo, but Magician's strategy really not working out here. And look at Otis, already 2 seconds ahead of Akos, unless he makes a huge mistake. That surely is his race 1, but we do have this battle for P2 going on, but Magician will actually fall down the order if his penalty doesn't get removed in the stewards room. If he wasn't at fault for it, and he could fall down to at least P9.
We'll have to see what happens to Pisty later on in this session. Either way, Magician will climb to 4th but then fall maybe as far down as 8th or 9th when that 3-second penalty on his name will be applied. Of course, Latifi has a 3-second penalty as well as ARL Connor. In that, by the way, what's happening, Metamon is making a very bold call to say that it will be Otis Lawrence to win this race, which is a very nice call considering he's 2.5 seconds in front of everyone after the safety car on the 24th or 25th lap. Is ERL Connor retires in the pit lane. He has had, ERL Aiden has retired in the pit lane. He's had enough of this race. As we continue on with the 24th lap here, as the VSR Akos still under some pressure. He's not battling with Otis at this rate. Otis is in a completely another league here, as he'll continue on with his form of league wins in this division, as they now head through on the DRS straight here. And of course there'll be no DRS full stop, I believe, until maybe, is it the 25th lap? I'm not sure. Will we have DRS on the final lap? That will be the bold call here. Leopard has harvested a little bit of energy and he's keeping it to his name here, so then he doesn't have to burn it too hard here, as they'll go through the final corner, will Leopard, and Pisty will try and challenge down, as DRS has been enabled, so we will have DRS on the final lap of this race, as Pisty is disqualified from this event for ignoring the drive-through penalty, and that will be FRA down to 1 driver, and Pisty will score 0 points.
Oh dear, that is costly for FRA, well, mainly Pisty, should I say, because FRA are really far out in front in the championship, and Boots down in P8 isn't really going to make much of an impact onto their lead. But so that he did get instant DSQ, did Pisty, as Latifi I just saw hit the wall through the S section. But now it's the final lap, as Akos has just lagged behind Leopard.
Yes, it looks like we've had a screen freeze. I was just on board with Akos there, and his engine completely depleted from power, which suggested to me the AI took control here, and Leopard suddenly out of nowhere is in P2, and he's going to be wondering how that's happened. And here comes Akos, and now he's applying his overtake left, right and centre very quickly in the hope that he can take P2, but I've got no doubt he's going to be absolutely fuming if a lag has caused him to fall from P2 to P3. Magician, in fairness to him, is trying to hold on for P4, maybe try and challenge for P3, but that 3-second penalty on his name is not going to help the case. As we keep an eye on that battle, it will continue to form, but Akos is not close enough, you'd think, to challenge here the Red Bull driver. Otis is now coming around that final corner. In fact, he's now on the main straight. He will continue on for the battle, and it will be a really intense performance as his form continues. Otis wins this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Akos will try his hardest to get as close as he can to Leopard, but the lag sends him to 3rd. Magician will fall to 7th with the time penalty applied, which will be bitterly disappointing for the BRT driver and the BRT team, but they will score some well-earned and well-deserved points. Boots will take 6th place and some really well-earned points as well in their damage limitation for Paradox Sim Racing. It has been one hell of an effort, and we'll take a look at the very provisional standings after the podium ceremony. Steve.
Yeah, what a performance from Otis. Just led and never looked back, really. But Akos probably is screaming at his internet right now for that little bit of lag. It's very unfortunate for him, but tried his best to get back at Leopard, but just couldn't do so, as we see Otis's character walking to the podium. And we also see that FGE got a singular point in Bourbon for now. And we don't know if Pisty will get reinstated to where he was. I don't think he will, because we don't know what would have happened on that final lap. So I don't think he will be able to gain his position back. But Magician, which would have been a P4, has fallen down to 7th, which is unfortunate, as FRA actually extend their lead to PSR with the Otis W. Keeps his streak alive, and yeah, just still looks like a force to be reckoned with.
There you go then. There's your final standings. Otis Lawrence then takes the win. He takes the pole position. He takes the fastest lap as well. What has been a really, really good performance. And correct me if I'm wrong as well. I'm under the impression he's also took a Grand Slam today as well. First all the way through the race as well. What a performance from the Mercedes and for FRA. Leopard in the end will be so happy to take P2, but in the circumstances of a P2, he won't be particularly happy. But looking forward to speak to Lawrence, Leopard and Akos actually after this race. Quantum in 4th with Finn in 5th, Boots in 6th, Magician in the end in 7th with Piccolo in 8th, Jack in 9th, Bourbon in 10th. The bottom 10, Connor, Latifi, Carsey, Aiden, Fresh 3 laps down, Emine, Andre and Tomasi all DNFing, and of course Piste at the back with a disqualification as a result of speeding under the safety car. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the final, well, having a quick conversation with people. Hopefully we'll get them in the party at some point, as invitations will be sent out. We will have a very quick conversation then and a quick roundup of what has been a very, very good race indeed. In the end, really solid performance from FRA despite the DNF. Really unfortunate DNF, you'd have to say, for him. Looking on it now, what's next for FRA? Are they going to potentially look and see if they can get the last lap reinstated, or would it just have to accept the L on this scenario?
Well, I mean, even if they did, if they had the proof that the drive-through wasn't there, wasn't Pisty's fault, there still isn't enough evidence to show what would have happened on that final lap. He could have still crashed out, it's a very unlikely scenario, but it can happen. So it's just a really unfortunate thing for FRA. They could go and reinstate it, but I mean, if he didn't get disqualified anyway, he would have got 20 seconds at the end of the race if they couldn't appeal it. So he would have finished last anyway. He wouldn't have scored any points if they couldn't get it cleared. But it's definitely going to be an interesting one to see what FRA do actually pursue, if they do appeal it or if they just leave it, because Otis scored all 25 points. He scored maximum points today. So yeah, it's going to be a hard one to see, but I reckon they'll leave it and just focus on Monza in 2 weeks' time.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get the guys in the party. I'm hoping some invites have been sent out so we can have that conversation at some point with the drivers. So let's have a very quick brief of what has happened in front of us. We had 4 safety cars throughout that entire race weekend. We've effectively had about 3 sprints. We had 2 sprint races within the sprint, and then we had the 3rd sprint towards the end and that 3-lap dash to the end. We've lost FRA Pisty as a result of that disqualification. Of course, I'm sure he had the notice at the top to say, you know, you have to serve your drive-through next lap, otherwise you are going to be disqualified. So that is going to be the main question, I think, on everyone's lips. Let's have a very quick look at what's happening in the chat as well, whilst hopefully the invites are getting sent out by yourself, Steve. We have people in the chat just absolutely praising Otis at the moment. I mean, he's been a solid driver through and through, and he's been astonishing throughout this season. The guy has won every single race so far this season. We're going to be continuing on, obviously, in a couple of weeks' time into Monza. What can anyone do to stop the man of the moment on the Xbox platform?
Well, I mean, Monza is a lot less driver skill. I'm not saying that these drivers aren't skilled, but like the skill factor won't come into it as much. Like it'll be more raw straight line speed. But Otis does seem to have that in his locker as well. So it'll definitely be a lot closer racing. Maybe Otis won't be able to break the gaps as much, but I don't think anyone will be able to stop him in the next 2 weeks at Monza. But maybe in a few weeks' time, there might be a mistake from Otis to show that he is human. But yeah, it's hard to see anyone beating him with the pace that he really is on at the minute.
Absolutely. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to wait a few more minutes in the hope that we can get at least someone in the party to have a little chat with us, because of course we are going to be on a break in a couple of weeks' time. And we do actually have a couple of drivers joining us in the likes of Akos and Leopard. Hopefully we can get Otis in the chat as well to have a discussion with us. So why don't we just have a very brief discussion with the 3rd place man on track. In the end, it was yourself, Akos. So in that scenario, Akos, starting off with 3rd place, you were in 2nd. It looked to me as if there was quite a big lag spike that sent you behind Leopard, but nonetheless a really good performance from yourself. Are you happy with 3rd, or is that little bug that happened effectively ruined what has been a fairly good race for you?
Well, I mean, finally I didn't mess up quali. Then the sprint race, I was really cautious. I didn't want to do any trouble. I knew that the race is going to start when the actual 50% race starts. Then yeah, in the last lap, I don't know what happened, but I think it was a screen freeze. I don't know, but yeah, that coasted me probably P2, which is really annoying. But yeah, podium in my debut, it's alright. I take that.
It's of no suspicion that VSR's form has dipped just a tiny little bit in the league racing community. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is going to be the confidence that VSR takes you into a more confident streak again.
Yeah, I really hope that we had a couple of good signings. So yeah.
Well, nonetheless, a really good performance from yourself. Congratulations. Anyway, on the podium, LCR Leopard, you're back here again, speaking with us. Thank you very much for being alongside us for what has been a cracking performance from yourself. That hard tyre going as far as it did, and the safety car could not have come out any better for you. Not to despair your performance on track. You've been fast all race weekend, but you must be thanking your lucky stars that the safety car did come.
Yeah, that was tactical genius, if I do say so myself, but no. Yeah, no, bit lucky. It was what I was holding out for. It kind of was the plan. I had a feeling that there would be another one coming, but yeah, I decided, I think, was end of lap 19 when it came out. I was deciding, okay, whatever happens, I'm coming in this lap, and then it all just aligned, thankfully, and yeah. So yeah. That's really, obviously, the only reason why I ended up with a podium, but then again, I did lose 8 seconds for some stupid reason, the VSC. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah,
but,
a lot of people were mentioning that, actually, in the chat about why you'd suddenly lost about 8 seconds under the VSC. But nonetheless, it didn't stop you from getting a cracking performance from yourself to take P2. Shazoo will be happy with that one, and I'm sure Shazoo will be keeping a very firm eye on your performances, because your form at the moment is up in the stars. I think actually your form is quite comparable with that of Otis at the moment as regards of your consistency and your pace. Is this something that you are feeling confident with? Is it the game? Is it the cars? Are you feeling great with that? Or are you just leading your way towards esports?
I mean, I've got no eyes on esports at the moment, I'll say that now, unless something drastic happens. But no, I just race because I enjoy it. That's really all there is. I love competing, and I love racing. So that's really the only reason why I'm still here. I mean, I've been doing this, gosh, nearly 6 years now. So yeah, it's just experience really that keeps me here. I don't have to, I've played the game for so long. I don't have to sweat the game as much, which is helpful. Brings the enjoyment factor in. So yeah, no, it's good.
Well, a good mentality from the self-confessed veteran of the esports community, LCR Leopard. Congratulations on P2. Okay then, first place, Otis. Let's be perfectly candid. You ran away with that towards the end. That must have felt good.
Yeah, definitely. Very good. Very unfortunate for FRA Pisty though, because definitely deserved the podium. Game kind of messed him up, but yeah, I just want to say he drove unbelievable today, and qualifying didn't go very well. Crashed at the end. Track felt very green today, and yeah, just had to drive as fast as I can as usual, and bring home the big points.
Well, big points indeed for FRA, despite what happened with Pisty. Obviously, it's a really disappointing result in the end for Pisty. Obviously, speeding under the safety car, apparently. I'm sure you guys will review the footage to see what had happened. But from a personal racing perspective, you're taking wins on the bounce every single week now. Your pace is unmatched with those on the grid at the moment. What's next for Otis? Because this is unparalleled within the Xbox stream, surely.
That's a good question. PC soon. Go against the big boys, the esports drivers. So I'm really curious to see what I'll do against those drivers. Hopefully, I'll do well, and hopefully it's a really good path to esports.
Well, you heard it here, there, folks. Otis is looking towards PC. Let's see what happens next. Across the rest, though, of this esports season for WOR LD, that is it. We are on for a little break now. We've got a little bit of a break for people to recharge their batteries, get themselves ready and raring for another race as we go live over to the Italian Grand Prix in Monza in 2 weeks. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye bye for now.